Welcome to UnMute, a new series by Output to talk about hard-hitting, often undiscussed topics in the music industry. Our first topic today is race in music. I'm your host, Joey Ng. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Output. I identify as Chinese Canadian, and my pronouns are she and her. I'd love for all of our guests to introduce themselves as well, your names, and what kind of music you make.
So going ahead and start. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Omar. I'm 16, and most of you probably know me best as more Kismet. I proudly identify as African American and non-binary and omnisexual, and my pronouns are they, them. You probably know me best from some of the music that I've released on labels such as Never Say Die, Disciple, and other labels of that nature, which are typically dubstep, experimental trap, melodic trap, and future bass. But I've made more of a shift towards creating experimental electronic pop, indie folk music, and orchestral music, as that resonates more with me, and that's kind of the stuff that I grew up with. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to be a part of this panel, and thank you so much to the incredible people over at Output for having me.
Thank you.
I guess we'll go next. I'm Yasmine, and this is my sister Jahan.
Hi.
We are both Yasmine Yusuf and Jahan Yusuf, and we are Krewella. And I identify as she, her.
She, her as well.
And we have been in the electronic music industry for probably over a decade. You might know us for some of our music we released on our album Get Wet, but then we've also been releasing music ever since then for probably over a decade, I would say now. So we experiment with everything from dubstep to trap to drum and bass to house. We have kind of been all over the place, but everything is infused with our vocals and very inspired by our Pakistani heritage. So a lot of Bollywood elements in there, very inspired by the sci-fi world, the futuristic world, and that's us.
My name is Greg, better known as G-Buck, I guess. I'm a producer, hip hop, dance, doesn't matter style. I just try to make whatever. I identify as he, him. I don't know. I make all different types of music. I'm not sure, but I'm just here to talk to you guys. So hi.
All good, all good. What's up, Spencer?
Hello. My name is Spencer. I am from San Francisco. My family is Italian, so we are mostly from Italy. I make progressive house and techno and deep house, somewhere in the intersection of all these things. I've released on labels Injuna, Mousetrap, Last Night on Earth, and Factory 93. So I like kind of to make the intersection of all those different styles. In my sets, I like to play really long, like 3 or 4 hour sets, so I can kind of take people on a journey through various styles, but it's generally all my own productions. And I identify as he, him, and it's a pleasure to be here with you all.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So I want to start off with a couple of numbers that you may not be surprised with. According to Data USA, with numbers drawn from the US Census, 73.6% of all musicians, singers, and related workers are white. Only 13% identify as Black, which leaves only 14% for all other race and ethnicities. Now, we just covered the kind of music that you guys make. A lot of you are in the electronic field, and our bread and butter is in touring and playing festivals. So when surveying bookings for all festivals booked globally, 77% of all performing acts were white. So I wanted to pass this around. Is there a personal reason why some of you felt it was important for you to join today and even talk about the topic of race? And what's it been like for you in the industry?
I guess I'll go on ahead and kick this off because the experiences I've had have kind of been mixed with ageism and homophobia as well. Every time I see a new lineup getting announced, I always see the same names on those lineups. And the vast majority of those names are cis white men who I don't even know have an inkling of transness or gayness in them. So as a result, they are further contributing, well, unknowingly, of course, contributing to this broader stereotype of what most people automatically assume electronic music is, which is just a bunch of straight white dudes DJing house music and people senselessly dance to it for hours. But that's not what it is. Electronic music is feeling. Electronic music is an experience that you get to have. It is something that was crafted by Black queer people to create safe spaces for other queer people, not just Black queer people, but for everyone in the LGBTQIA community. And it really bothers me that the perception of how music is looked at now, how most music is looked at now, has shifted to this narrative of strictly white when it used to be strictly everything. And that's why, the reason why I felt the need to come and speak with you guys here on UnMute today is because I have been viewed as a liability so much before I blew up. And when I blew up, now all of a sudden, everybody who didn't want to book me before because I was a trans person, because I was Black, because of 15 or 16 or 14 or whatever young age I was that was at the legal limit, now all of a sudden they want me. Now all of a sudden they want to send me a bunch of booking offers that I don't think I'll personally be able to handle during my last year of high school. But like, you know, I'm just trying to deal with it as best as I can, while also making sure that people know that, hey, hi, I'm not the only trans person in the electronic music sphere. I'm not the only gay person in the electronic music sphere, and I'm definitely not the only Black person in the electronic sphere. I should not have to look through this lineup like 3 times to only find like 2 to 3 Black people, another trans person that shares the same pronouns as I do. It just doesn't feel right to me to see that we keep talking about diversity and inclusion everywhere on social media, but then don't live up to the example of being inclusive and being diverse with our lineups and who we select to be on stages and who we put on at events. If we're just gonna have the same stagnant lineups over and over again, like, don't get me wrong, you know, these lineups are still great, they're still awesome, and they're also great performers, but we need more people representative of diverse communities, of beautiful cultures that deserve to be shared in electronic music that people are actually doing but aren't getting enough love for. And so I wanted to come on here to hopefully have a discussion that people can see and hopefully realize that, you know, there should be more of us on these lineups. There should be more women on lineups. There should be more people in the LGBTQ community on these lineups. There should be more people of color or people of other marginalized communities on these lineups. If they are following a passion and they are bomb-ass performers and they are a part of these communities, then it makes no sense for you to just pass over them just because you want to go for the option that will make you more money.
Yeah, I hear you, and thank you for bringing that up. I mean, do any of you, I know all of us sort of identify as some minority of some sort. Do any of you feel like when you are included that it's sort of tokenized?
Yep, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, because as women, sometimes in the beginning of our career, I just felt lucky to be on a lineup, which I know is not the right mindset to have at all. But when you're starting out, you don't know if you're getting chosen because you're the hot new shit or you're something to check a box.
Exactly.
And so it still messes with me, and I still don't know how to feel about it like a decade later.
I totally feel you on that, because that's the kind of period that I'm in right now with everything going on. Obviously, I know that some of the stuff where I'm getting booked, like with my friends, like I know that shit's not tokenized, and I know that they want me just because they love me and they believe in my prowess as a performer and as a DJ and as an artist. So I trust those shows, but it shows where the vast majority of the people on the lineup are cis white guys that I'm just like, thinks I'm the only trans person on this lineup. Like that's my immediate thought process, and it sucks. But you know,
I've been on lineups where like it was like that, and like I'll go to my green room and security would think I was like a rapper or something because there was so many Like,
What?
yeah, they're like, oh, who are you performing with or whatever. You know, it's kind of it's kind of awkward, but you know, that's just how like rare it is to have, a certain type. I mean, I feel like these lineups and stuff like that, they do book black people, obviously, but it's like a certain type. So if you are from, inner city, Detroit, Philadelphia, somewhere like that, and you come in there looking like, not an EDM producer, you won't get respected as one, so it's weird.
Where do you guys think the narrative changed, like more when you're talking about the history and the roots of like disco and house music in New York and Chicago and Detroit? Like who along the way erased this history so that when, we came up into dance music, I felt like we had just entered a scene that was brand new.
Yeah.
Like, do you have any thoughts on that about how that sort of evolved over time? This amnesia, it feels like.
that was a pretty good analogy. Got to give you that for that one the next time we see each other.
I have amnesia moments all the time. Ask Yasmine.
This is like a mass scale amnesia.
Yeah, and that's just like an example. I mean, that happens in every aspect of history, even here in the United States. But yeah.
I think for electronic music specifically, things started changing when a lot of white cis people started taking elements of this and bringing it to a broader place in history where more people could get their hands on it, because the vast majority of the people in the world are white, or well, at least in the country are white. There is a very small amount of black people, and those black people, that section of which were a part of the LGBTQ community who created that, it essentially was stripped from them and brought to be a more mainstream thing that more people can enjoy. And then it started branching off into different genres, like drum and bass, UK garage, house, trance, progressive house, dubstep. And oh my God, especially dubstep. I swear to God, there are, oh man, it sucks because I'm leaving like the bass music community as a whole and like delving more into that, but still listening to dubstep and possibly releasing dubstep when I don't feel like releasing stuff like that. It's weird, but if I had a dollar for every time I had heard some bullshit about current and past shit going on in the bass music community, I would have enough money to buy my mom and me and my friends a house, separate houses across the street from each other that we can live in and check on each other if we're okay. That's how much fucking money I would have. It is absolutely ridiculous how producers get a kick out of ripping off other producers' sounds or ripping off other producers' styles, and not giving them enough credit for it. Especially.
Not to cut you off, you spoke on a good point. Like we're kind of seeing it now, like Jersey Club, because like there's so many Jersey Club producers from in New Jersey and Philadelphia area that just don't even smell a big stage like that. And then we have artists that would copy the sound, make it, put it in their music, and they play full sets of the music, and then it's people in these inner cities that don't even get an opportunity to get an agent.
So
there's like a Columbusing of musical genres.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Like co-opting the underground. Is that a problem? Is that the US that's the problem then? Because I think about like what started in the UK and how the US kind of extracted like promoters or DJs here.
I wouldn't say that the US directly is the problem. I would say that they have contributed to the ever increasing issue of the ripoff culture, but I mean, it's not, we're not entirely absolved from blame, because I'm pretty sure that we're not the only country that does shit like this.
Right. Of course.
So, as a result of that, I feel like a lot of people, like, if you find something that's interesting, you can't help but write something similar to that. Like freaking literally, when I first heard Nurture by the ever so lovely Porter Robinson, first thing I fucking wrote the day after I listened to Nurture was a dubstep song with like this beautiful ass piano melody in the intro, and beautiful pads and chopped up instruments, which is stuff I'd been writing before, but not in that say vain as the stuff that he did on Nurture. But I noticed that a lot of other producer friends of mine started doing the same. And so it's like this weird disconnect between drawing inspiration from things and straight up ripping it off. But I feel like a lot of producers in bass music have a hard time understanding. And it's always taking inspiration from the innovators of the scene. So like people like, you know, Sudden Death, Leotrix, Voltra, Sonjox, you know, a lot of those people in communities like creating innovative music that really inspires people and evokes passion and light and love in people. And then there are like other people who just want to like rip it off, or like try to write something like it only to end up ripping it off on accident. And so as a result, because those producers probably have a larger platform, they can release stuff like that, and that gets them more plays, more streams, more everything. And promoters can see like, you know, their hard ticket history, their streams, everything. They're going to go for that option over the actual innovators of that sound or that genre themselves, which is very bothersome because I literally was at the runt of that for the longest period of my life, where I like literally as much as I hate the character EP now, the moment I dropped it, everyone said, "Oh my God, this is the most innovative EP that's ever been on Never Say Die, and this is so cool, wow." And same shit happened with Revenge of the Unicorns, but obviously we got nothing except for like live stream offers. No promoter wanted me, but they always went for the next option upwards of what I would have been. And it's always felt weird because I don't know. I had this like weird mindset going into it. I was like, why are you picking somebody that isn't going to do justice to this sound and put on the people who pioneered it in the first place, instead of going with somebody that's going to respect that?
So I want to touch on that a little bit. I mean, myself in the music tech industry, I'm surrounded in an industry dominated by white male peers. I'm often the only woman in the room. I'm often the only person of color in the room. And you said something about how people can rip off or be influenced by stuff they hear by accident, because sometimes, you know, it takes a couple degrees where the experimental originator has been copied by one person and another person. And like by the time someone who like appears as like cishet and white hears that influence, they don't know that they're borrowing from a different culture. So I want to ask Spencer, as someone who does make progressive house, who, if they don't know that you identify in a minority group, is just like, there's another white guy, you know, making music that came from Black and brown cultures. Like, how has your identity kind of influenced how you create in this space?
Well, the thing is, obviously, I'm Caucasian, so you can't hide that kind of thing. But to fill everyone in, I'm gay, and I struggled with that all my life. And I only publicly came out last year because I was afraid to tell. I was afraid to tell anyone. I didn't know what people would think. I thought I would lose fans. I thought I just kept it really secret and really quiet my whole life. And what actually what made me fall in love with the music industry is when I was a kid, I was raised in a very, white, straight Christian community, like when I was like in high school. And it was, I loved electronic or dance music because there was so much diversity all over, and there was all like genders and sexuality and race and whatever it was. It didn't matter who you were. It was just an inclusive community. And that's what really drew me into dance music in the first place, because when I was a teenager and going to these parties, I actually got to experience all sorts of cultures and all sorts of genders and religions and sexualities or whatever. At the time, I didn't know I was gay. I just knew I felt very different. And that's what always drew me in. And that's why my love is in this culture and this scene, because it doesn't matter who you are. If you're at the show or you're playing, it doesn't matter who you are. So it took a lot of willpower for me to actually stand up there to the fan base and to everyone in the whole community and say that I am gay, even though, as I said, I am Caucasian, but people can't tell. If you look at me, you can't tell that I am gay. And it really took a lot of strength from inside me to actually say that, because it was a big weight that was on my shoulders my whole life. But I feel like free now that I can actually express that and hopefully pave the way for more people to feel comfortable about their sexuality, that this is a safe space. This is like the safest space in all of music, in my opinion. Like this is the best place to be.
Well, first of all, sorry to cut you off, but I just want to say I'm very proud of you. Coming out is a very, very difficult thing to do. I should know I've had to do it twice as I figure out my own identity. And, you know, it's never easy because you're always under the assumption that you're going to lose followers or you're going to lose support, and nobody's going to want to book you. Nobody's going to want to support your music. But if no one wants to support your music after you reveal what is easily one of the most important things you'll ever have to speak about, they're not true fans to begin with. They don't deserve to support you and whatever you create for years to come and the spaces that you create for other people in our community. So I'm very, very proud of you, and I'm very happy for you, because coming out is not an easy thing to do at all. So I'm very, very happy that, you know, you're out and you're open and you're finding a way to bring light to our community as a whole. So I'm very appreciative of that. Okay.
Thank you so much,
Greg. I'm so sorry.
You too.
I think, see, I wouldn't necessarily say it's like your fault for being Caucasian or anything, but I think there is a trickle down effect. There's not really in the higher positions, you know, the agents and promoters and stuff like that. There's not too many minorities, women, anything, POCs in those spaces, so they can't really relate. They can't really relate to anyone, you know, in the gay community or the Black community, or, you know, they don't even know how to approach women. So it's like, I feel like it's like a trickle down effect. I don't think it's like you said, the crowds are very diverse. If you go to Ultra, you know, you see every single person out there, flags and stuff like that. But I do think it comes from the top as far as representation.
So, I mean, you brought up a good point. Like, we've all talked about our sort of personal experiences in the music industry, but what about this like industry itself? Like, you're talking about agents, you're talking about festivals, you're talking marketing people, label execs, managers, you know, that may be even less diverse. So what has your experience been about the industry at large, and what do you think that they could be doing better? Is it about agencies hiring more diverse talent, A&Rs? You know, do people need to give money to different sorts of festivals that are cropping up that aren't, you know, dominated by the major players like Live Nation, Golden Voice, etc., that are predominantly white? But how do you guys think about the industry, and what can they be doing so that we don't feel tokenized, and we do represent the music that comes from the people that originated it?
I think mainly talent buyers should try and find a way to look into, you know, different forms of like, or other artists that aren't just the ones that they would typically book every now and again. You know, SoundCloud exists, Spotify, Apple Music, Google exists. Search up, you know, names that you see lots of people talking about in the moment, because 9 times out of 10, those people that are not going to be talking about, you know, all of the cis white dudes that you typically book every year for lineups, they are going to be talking about somebody within a marginalized community. And, you know, if it's a name that you recognize that is within a marginalized community, skip over it if you've already booked them. It's okay. There are other fish in this, in the words of multiple failed relationships, there are other fish in the sea. Shit works the same way with relationships. Shit works the same way with festivals. There are plenty of other fish in the sea that you can plug out for your lineups. These search engines, these streaming services exist, and, you know, social media as well. If you see somebody talking about someone hot on social media that you have no idea who is, like, for example, my friend Lucy Voltra, so many people have talked about her music nonstop, and people respect her as an artist and appreciate her as an artist. But she has had no shows other than like the digital mirages. And even then, you know, it's like doing like audio sets over created visuals based around her brand. But she got an offer from UTA, and she is now a UTA artist like me. And so now in the future, hopefully, when things of that nature are starting to come back around, she'll be able to get booked for these events. Which is my hope, because, you know, I think that if more talent buyers and if more agencies and if more promoters really put a focus on looking for talent like me, like Greg, like Spencer, like Krewella, I think if especially on the underground, because there are a lot of us, I think that they would be taking better strides towards creating a more inclusive environment for music and creating a more inclusive environment for electronic music specifically, because that's what electronic music was entirely based around, which was inclusivity, diversity, and creating safe spaces for people. Mosh pits aren't safe. Headbanging will immediately break your neck. So, you're gonna injure yourself just for a show. And then especially drug culture as well, bringing recreational drugs and alcohol to events. You don't need that shit to enjoy a show. If you're coming for the music, you don't need that.
Well, let's go back. You said something that I think a lot of us think is like, oh, if they're gonna book them, then they filled their quota and they can pass on me to put on someone else like that. And I think like, no, don't do that. Like book them all. Like we don't want that's like, okay, we have 5 women and we have 2 Black people and we'll call it a day. It's kind of like, I always go back to like that famous quote that Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, like, when will there be enough female supremes? And it's just like, when there are 9. And so like, it's okay for talent buyers to say like, screw it, I'm not going to do this like proportion of booking, but I'm going to have like all women or everyone on the lineup.
Definitely.
It's going to identify from some minority group, as opposed to like, okay, let me book that 77% cishet white male and then fill out the other 23% with like the token minorities.
And not just as like a themed thing, like not just
exactly.
like women and music, but like as just a normal ass festival.
Like,
just
themed events done incorrectly are just the worst.
Even like hip hop right now, like you see so many women crushing it right now, and
hell yeah,
and they're finally getting, like, you're starting to see these lineups, and it's like, straight up the first 5 lines is like Meg Thee Stallion, Doja Cat, it's just like killing it, and it's like finally, it's not like you said a theme. It's not like, oh yeah, we're going to look for more women this year to play the shows and stuff like that. It's like actually, I think people are starting to get in places where they actually understand how these lineups work and these people, and it's not just like, oh, let's just fill our quota this year.
Yeah.
And
I think last year I feel like once we were all shut down, and when we were dealing with this whole George Floyd stuff, like we saw the whole industry, back Black people, stuff like that, and now we're right back to it. And I don't know if it's because it's promoters, back getting their back pay on the artists that they booked from 19 or 20, but like I just see the same stuff. I'm like,
same
all that last year.
Same.
Like,
Definitely.
Same shit, different year.
Yeah,
but like more what you were saying earlier, it's like what you were saying should be an occupation at an agency for someone who's literally
100%.
just scraping the internet to find the newest awesome cool shit from people from marginalized communities. But like I don't know if people are trying to spend money on that, and yet that would only make their company better in every single way. It would make the festivals and shows better. It would make everything better.
And literally, like, even though I'm not of legal age to have a job, well, technically speaking, if I have a work permit, I would be, but not a job like this. But if that were the case, I would sign up for a job like that in a heartbeat, because I'm on the internet all the fucking time. I see these people killing it every single day, and all of these people I'm so blessed to call my friends. But it's just like, at what point are you going to realize that these people also need to be given a larger platform to spread their music and spread their influence within marginalized communities, to show other Black kids like me, other Black adults like Greg, and other queer people, like, it's showing these people that they are not alone in this, and you can push to do whatever the fuck you want to do.
Yeah.
And you don't get much of that message anymore if about 70 to 80% of the lineup is straight white dudes who don't know any better, that they're perpetuating to a stereotype that's on most lineups.
So let's move on a little bit from talent, okay? Like, we recognize that we need to do better in terms of A&R at booking agencies. Like, what about when you guys are playing? What is it like on a day-to-day basis when you're playing at a festival, or you're trying to book a session, or you're trying to release something? Like, as a musician, You know, how does race play into the industry in which you earn a living in general?
Yeah, I'm not going to start first on this one. I'm going to take a second
I
to
mean,
formulate
this is
Or Yasmine or Jahan, you know, when you show up to a festival and like you see a couple of your other girls being like, hey, what's up? And then everyone else in the green room or the artist area looks very homogenous. Like, how does that make you feel?
I think there's a safety element here for anyone who's a person of color or a woman or however they identify in a marginalized community. Feeling safe is not something that always has to do with your physical safety. It can be just a mindset, even if you will not be harmed physically. It could feel like you're threatened. It could feel like you're vulnerable. And that's something that we've been really lucky to literally always do everything together because we're in this group. We're not traveling solo. We always have each other. We're very grateful for that. But I always say if I was a solo act, I would be in a very different position and I would feel a lot more unsafe than I do when I have my other half with me at all times.
And alienating too. Like, I can imagine it can be really alienating, especially when you see like the clique culture at a lot of these festivals backstage, which is very apparent. But I guess it never really, it never really affected us because we have each other.
But from an outside perspective, like we never had a seat at that table. Never. Like even from the inception, maybe I'm just not cool enough. I don't know. But
that's the girl, don't even.
But like these are the thoughts that come across your head because you're like, why don't I have a seat at that table? But it's a lot more layered than just you as a musician or your personality. It's more of what you look like, how people want to accept you.
Really
So
is.
the two of you are mixed race. There may be situations where people mistake you as being for white passing or even Spencer. Like with this, you know, with your ethnicity speaking less loudly than say a black or brown person, have you ever been in a situation where you notice that you might have been treated differently because you are perceived as white versus black and brown peers?
I think for me personally, more so growing up, and I don't know how much of it is the story I told myself growing up, just feeling like I didn't fit in, whether it was at Islamic school or at Pakistani family gatherings where I felt like I'm the only white girl there and I don't really fit in and I don't speak the language, or in school, you know, as someone with a foreign name, fasting during the month of Ramadan, you know, and people are, you know, very confused about your culture. So I think it's for a lot of mixed race people, it's this feeling of like, no man's land identity, like this feeling of not really, and a lot of ambiguity of not really knowing where you do belong. And I think as we've gotten older, we've really synthesized I guess integrated all aspects of our multicultural upbringing, which has, and from that we feel, I mean, for me personally, I feel very at home in my mixedness, like whatever sort of experience I've had as a white passing girl growing up in the United States, but also being raised Muslim and having a brown father. There's a lot of confusion around identity for me personally, growing up especially. But yeah, at festivals, Yasmine, I can't really think if there was ever an experience for me personally where I felt aware of any sort of race issue for me from.
I haven't felt anything. If anything, it's more been because of our visible gender and not necessarily because, I mean, I've always felt more brown than white, but everyone, like, even we have another sister, the three of us had like completely different experiences growing up because we're all like little individual ladies over here. But it never occurred to me that it might be the way I look racially that gave people an issue. It always was the woman thing first. But now, I mean, like I said earlier, it's a very confusing thing because there's multiple factors and you don't know which one is turning people off or making them act differently towards you. Or even when we started embracing our ethnic heritage more, which is probably started in 2015, and people had already known us for 4 years, and we hadn't really done a lot of that. So starting in maybe late 2014, 2015, when we started doing that more, I'm sure it turned a lot of people off because they were like, what is this jewelry and these new sounds that I hear in the music, and why are we doing this? I don't want any part of this. But
like it's always been us.
It's just surfacing in a different way than
it's
you've
more
experienced.
us now.
Yeah, or it's like
we're becoming more ourselves. I do think as a mixed person, it's super important to own all aspects of ourselves and to remember, like, we are white. Our mother is white, and we need to own that part of us too, in the way where there might be an inherent mindset that we're not aware of as we're trying to own our brownness too. And we have to open ourselves up to being challenged and critiqued along the way, because we're a part of the problem in so many ways, in unconscious ways as well. So owning that whiteness at the same time, and the privilege and the unconscious, potentially racist behaviors that exist within us, that we need to be open to criticism for. And from that also, just knowing that we'll only grow from that.
Very beautifully said. I think I always say that a lot of my allies have the best intentions, but they have a massive blind spot. How do you guys feel about that? And what can we do about this blind spot? Go ahead, Spencer.
Yeah. So I was going to say, I'm kind of on the opposite side here. If someone sees me, or I'm walking into a green room or at a festival or something, they assume like white privileged male, like we haven't gone through any struggles or something like that. They have no idea what I went through my whole life trying to discover my identity or whatever. They just assume I've had it easy because I'm a white privileged male, you know what I'm saying? Because they have no idea internally what I've gone through with my friends, what I've gone through with my family, what I've gone through with the fan base and all that stuff. So I think it's actually the reverse, where people assume I have it so easy, but actually you don't know what's going on in someone's brain. You don't know what exactly. Coming to my identity was very, very, very difficult. It was over a decade of self-realization and understanding who I was. So there's kind of the opposite thing, where I do look like a privileged white male, but there's a lot under the surface that you don't even know.
But I think that goes hand in hand with inclusion and having different people, because like the industry was so one way, one-sided, that now you can't even be yourself. Well, you are yourself, but you felt like you had you weren't getting the representation because there was it's just been like straight white cis dudes all the time. So like I feel like if there was inclusion, or if there will be inclusion, that will help out with people like all of us.
And the fans too. It'll only benefit the fans and help them see their idols, or these examples, the people they look up to, embracing their identities and the aspects of themselves that they might have shamed, or in culture historically that we've shamed.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I always try to go back to the idea that, like, not only is it the right thing to do, but people need to forget that it's also good for business, right? Like when you only cater to like 30% of the US and overrepresent them by 77% of the lineup looking like 30% of the US, like you're missing the majority of the market itself. Like it just makes much sense to have diversity. So knowing that oftentimes there's like an uphill battle to fight, like what motivates you guys to keep pressing on?
I think for me, what keeps me pushing, all in all, is my mom. I think my mom is the main reason why I've even let More Kismet go on as long as I have. And it's gotten to a point where I am starting to do it for myself, because this project is a part of me that I love expressing and that I love to continue to grow and expand on past a musical point. But also my mom is the entire reason why More Kismet started in the first place. She is the one who pushed me to continue producing after I made my first track. She helped me come up with the name. And trust me, I had a lot of really shitty aliases before More Kismet, one of which was Jack Twilight, which she immediately called out on sounding like a Magic Mike stripper name. Yeah, so yeah, my mom is like, so she keeps it real with me always. And, she is the main reason why I continue to push through everything, even at my worst moments. Like the other weekend, I cried for the first time in 4 years. And it was a lot on me. And it caused me to think about everything going on in my life, musically, artistically. Um, and, it just really caused me, it really prompted me to take a step back from everything and just really focus on myself in the moment. And my mom was the one who helped guide me through that, get to a better state of mind. And, she has changed my life for the better. And, I want to do my part and help change my own life and hers and my friends and, put us all in a better position from where we are now. Because, I feel like you know, if I ever get to that point, that's the one thing I want to do is I want to, make a better life for me and myself.
Hell yeah.
You
So I
will.
really appreciate that because I'm working my ass off, and sometimes it just doesn't seem like shit is really going anywhere. Especially with
You're not alone.
stuff like this.
We're here for you. You're not alone. We got to lift each other up. So you're not fighting this on your own.
Yeah.
It's crazy what like perception, because for me, looking at you more, and even, oh my God, like Spencer, it's my first time meeting you today, but I will look into your music. But G-Buck and more, like I love both of your music so much. So when I look at you guys, I'm like, oh my God, they got it going on. They're fucking popping. I love them. But like we all think that nothing's happening or shit's moving too slow. It's a lot up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh my God. So sweet.
I guess I mean the whole reason why I got into dance music is because like, I grew up in the inner city and it wasn't really cool to like dance music like until like Diplo came around with Mad Decent in Philly, but I was always like the outcast, so I always thought it was cool to be like myself and still like hip hop and everything like that, but also explore this dance avenue that a lot of people they just write off as techno in the street, in the hood and shit. So
yeah.
So like I just want to just bring the world together and just like have these little black kids in Philly just be like, damn, like G-Buck did that, like
for real.
So and also what Moore said, it's also for my family, because you gotta understand, like, being black, inner city, whatever, it's tough to even get to this point where we are now. So you can think that you're not doing much, but we're on an output platform right now talking about stuff like that.
That's very true.
Yep.
The very people whose Granular synthesis plugin I use to create hit music every day, I'm having a discussion with. This is the best thing ever.
Not sponsored, y'all.
I love what you said about
Portal is amazing.
Yes, it is.
All the tools from us that you need to succeed.
I love what you were saying about how like a huge motivation for you is knowing that people who look to you and see you as an example will be motivated to not only create the music but like the music and go to the shows. And I think that's something, when Yasmine and I started really embracing our Pakistani heritage and rekindling our relationship with that for the first time in years, it started showing on the outside, and I noticed that we were attracting fans who were coming to us. And even if they weren't Pakistani or Indian or Bangladeshi, even if they were from like South America or anywhere else around the world, they were like, you guys inspired me to like stay in touch with my roots too. And hearing that to me, and hearing about people wanting to integrate that into themselves, like that aspect of themselves, and to not lose sight of a big part of their upbringing, and to want to continue that without the shame. That's been super inspiring for us.
Like,
I think
that's amazing.
It's monetary stuff like that as well, but like we all want to leave a legacy when we pass on, and
yes,
Spencer, like you coming out, that could have changed someone's life, and they don't notice it. Seriously. So, and more, man, you unbelievable what you're doing right now. And so I just feel like that's all we want to do is leave a legacy somehow,
I think making people feel proud of who they are, because like I know growing up, I did not tell people I was Pakistani, especially after 9/11. It was just like unspoken up. I would say I was Indian or something else. And like now I'm so proud to say that, and I don't really care what people think. And if someone else can feel the same way about that, like how Jahan was saying, like connecting with themselves on that level again and being proud of who they are, that is dope. That's
making people proud of who they are is the biggest power you can ever have as an artist.
Agreed.
Even from like a mental health perspective, anytime you're suppressing a part of yourself and it just sits and like just brews in the subconscious, and you become estranged from that part of yourself. It's something that you're not even aware that's an issue.
Absolutely,
it'll show up in different ways. It shows up in aggression. It shows up in your physical health. And so if we want to like bring this to mental health and actually just health in general, I think that really owning and embracing and celebrating those parts of us and encouraging people to also accept themselves for despite whatever they're feeling any sort of inner hatred towards or judgment towards.
So I never felt more proud to be Asian than when I had a child. So let's talk about the future. Like, what are you excited about in terms of like the small steps of change that the industry has taken so that things could potentially be different a couple years from now or for the next generation of artists? I know you're a lot younger than I am. Hopefully things will get a lot better for you, but like, what are you guys excited about?
Personally, I think it's great that everyone is, as we're talking about right now, we're all being proud of who we are. And I think that's really important for the next generation and the fans to be like, oh, that's cool that they're, embracing their heritage, or that's cool that he or she or they are embracing their sexuality or their gender. I think that's awesome because we need to set examples that this is okay and you are welcome here. I think that is the key, because I never really had, when I was growing up, I never really saw most of my the people I was listening to and stuff like that. I didn't really know any queer people who I could kind of look up to or connect to. It was kind of like pushed under the rug a little bit. And I think just by embracing who you are and being proud of that and showing people who you are, we can set examples like, this is okay, you're welcome here, like follow in our footsteps kind of thing.
I think like you said, well, you were bringing up the queer, like back in the day when you were growing up. I think if we stop, if corporations and festivals and stuff stop trying to brand people and just be diverse in general, we would it should be like, oh, we got this year's about women, this year's about Black Lives Matter, this year's about this. So it's like, stop trying to brand it and just let these people embrace their own
individuality.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Thank you for
I have those kind of words too, don't even stress.
But everyone should just embrace themselves and let them it shouldn't be like, oh, he's Black, or oh, this person's Black, or this person's this and that. Just let them tell their story, but include everyone.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I'm really excited about for the future is the amount of people that are making strides in marginalized communities right now that have the potential to be booked on these same festivals next year. So that way, if I just so happen to be the token representation at 17 still, and I get dragged on the lineups, even though, not dragged is the wrong word, but just put onto these lineups as well after all this time, and I get to see all of my friends on there as well, that would just really make things more worthwhile for me. Like, Voltra, Snowcloak, Sizzy, Akios, all of these people that, that share this community with me, that I share friendship with and that I share music with, getting to be on the same lineup as them and seeing that there is such a broader catalog of people from the same community on there for different communities on there is just, it's just the coolest thing ever to see that becoming more and more of a possibility, especially with COVID regulations, going down, and, more vaccines being distributed, which means that the music industry can pick up the pace a bit more again. I'm just really excited.
And that you named people that you would love to see in the same lineup, because USC actually did a study of the 900 most popular songs in the last decade, and only 9 out of 1,291 producing credits went to women of color. Only 9. And so since you dropped
out of 900?
9 out of 1,200.
Oh
13.
Lord!
Yeah, that's about to change.
Yeah,
That's
so
going to change.
I would love if each of you could go around and put on some people who you think are underrepresented, and like would love to like support them. A&R's talent buyers, pay attention.
Give me a second.
Write these down, and then like throw you guys a few dollars for the work. Okay, you know, highlight some people we should be listening to and urging talent buyers to put on these festivals.
I've got a few.
Give me a second. I need a.
Spencer,
There's a.
first.
Yeah. So one of my best friends, Kurion, she is from Japan, and she moved to the U.S. She moved to San Francisco, where we got to know each other. She's one of the most talented, unbelievable producers and DJs. And I took her on my last tour with me, like for a few of the gigs. It was so much fun. And I would come to her whole set, like even if we're playing together, I like make sure I'm there because her music is so beautiful. You know what I mean? And I think she's so unbelievably talented. And she's the nicest person. I absolutely adore her. And another is Miriam. She is a singer, but she is absolutely unbelievable. Marieme. And we're writing a bunch of music together right now. She actually is coming to my house in about 3 hours. So
nice.
She is absolutely amazing, and I highly recommend
give her our love.
So
absolutely.
We're gonna have to
she's from Senegal.
So I do have a challenge for you though, because I'd hate to point it out, you are the only person on this panel that like appearance is Caucasian. Like as a white male, do you think that you can use your position or perception of you to be able to bring these women on stage with you and make sure like, hey, if I get booked, I'd really love if you book these people that I love to.
I do. At the moment, you know, I make sure to do that. I mean, not like just not to do that just to do that. I do it because I love their music and they're my friends and all of that stuff. You know what I mean? So that's why.
Same.
That's why it's like on my last tour, I brought Kurion to a bunch of the shows, and now she's doing her own thing, and she's doing amazing right now. And she's getting all her own headline gigs. I'm so happy for her. You know what I mean?
Amazing.
And when shows kick up, I haven't even announced any of these Miriam tracks, but I would love to have her at the gig and do live singing over some of the tracks. You know, I think that would be amazing if we could do that together. So absolutely 100%. Like I'm all about that. And first and foremost, it's because I love their music. Yeah. It's because I love them as people and their music. It's not just like I want to bring in the Japanese artist with me and whatever. No, it's because I love their music at the core. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the music and the friendship at the core.
All right, G-Buck, who would you bring with you? We're getting in the van. We're going for it.
How big's the van?
Oh my God.
Like a 12-seater?
12-seater. Okay.
I'm
looking down my list.
Like Chi more unique. Swizzy Mac, he's an awesome producer.
Oh my God, yes.
Natus, High Key, Akira.
Yes.
You know, it's just like I just feel like there's so many people out there. Cookie Kawaii, like, you know, just there's so many people out there that are just killing it in their own respective ways. And you know.
So we're sending the car to Jersey.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Krewella, Moore. Who else should we be checking out?
All right, I'll go. Gyrofield, Voltra, Skybreak, Invective, Holloman, Achios, Tor, Sizzy, Caption, Kilimanzigo, Quiet Bison, Sokka, Kamo, Black City, Chuck Sutton, Paulina Hare, Crimson Child, Kamarian, Nox, Euphorian, Lunamatic, Leotrix, Farah, Imagiro, Dumu, Nock2, ISOXO, Unique, Summit, BH, Phonon, and Ricky Sand.
I don't
if I
know
have the
most of
biggest
those
car in the
names.
universe, oh yeah,
But I'll jump in the
Screenshot
I'll
of
jump in the
that.
bus.
you know what?
We'll
I'm
make
a,
sure that we have the full
yeah.
manifest of all of the passengers in the
Oh my
vehicle.
God.
I need a
Yeah.
playlist. I need a playlist of this.
yes,
Yeah.
I'm putting them down on a list in my notes app right now so I can text them to you guys after recording is done.
Yes.
Amazing.
Because yeah, all of the people that I just listed off are like the most insane human beings in the world at production, at songwriting, music, everything. And you know, they all create such incredibly innovative and jaw-dropping music that I truly love and that inspires me on a day-to-day basis to create the crazy wonky shit that I create. So you know, giving them a moment of your time would just be incredible. And if I could bring like 5 of any of the like 30 something names that I just read off on tour with me, I undoubtedly would in a heartbeat.
There's so many more I'm missing. I just was like, yeah.
See, that's a
Same
festival I
here,
want
but
to
this
go
is
to.
like this
We
is a
could
list
go
I
on
gave in EDM.
forever. We obviously all listen to a lot of different people. I love hearing just like the love for all of these artists. Krewella, who would you bring with you?
I have Kessler Ambivalent. Ambivalent, is that the name of the album or EP on repeat? It's so good. And Shy Girl. Is anyone familiar with Shy Girl?
Oh yes, I love Shy Girl.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna
Oh
be the
my
third
God.
person to say Unique because I fucking love her
Yes!
so much.
Unique
I would
is
bring
the
all of
third act.
you. I would
Oh.
definitely bring all of you guys.
First Black
I
History
would happily come on
Love
tour with you
her.
in a heartbeat if you guys would steal me.
That would be so much
But,
fun.
yeah. Oh my God, that would be so much fun.
Can
But
we just go
yes.
to this festival? Can we
Yeah,
make
can we
this
like
lineup
create
happen?
this as a
Wait,
festival?
for real?
This
Well, we
is
can
a
just
fire
put
festival.
the output marketing budget that we need.
Yes.
Hello.
All of our unmute participants and friends. Let's do it.
Yes. I'm
And
so down for
there's
that.
also this chick Tsunami that I've been really loving. And this producer, his name is Amanu, and those are the few that like popped into my head immediately, but there's
Oh my
probably so
God.
more.
Yeah.
I have to shout out a
Tsunami
great
and Imanu are literally the best human beings alive. They are so talented and I love them so much.
I
They're
love
such
their
incredible friends
music.
of mine.
That's
Yes.
great. I love that. I love knowing they're good people too.
I have to
Yes.
shout out an amazingly talented experimental pop electronic producer from Pakistan, Abdullah Siddiqui.
Ooh.
So good.
He's amazing.
So good.
And he sings, he writes. All of his music is in English too.
Nice.
Yeah, vocalist, songwriter, producer.
That is awesome.
He's a little
All right.
prodigy.
Oh yeah.
So
Multi-hyphenate.
thank you all so much for spending this past hour with me. I know that this can be uncomfortable for other people to speak up about, and you were all so vulnerable. I just want to close off before we say goodbye that if each one of you could make one ask of our allies, what would it be?
Ooh, this is a great question.
Take more time to look into the change that you want to see in the music industry. If you want to see more Black people, if you want to see more LGBTQ people, if you want to see, you know, any other person of color or person within a marginalized community on lineups, push for that. Ask for your favorite artists within these communities to be on those lineups, because I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of promoters, they weren't listening before, but I know for a fucking fact they're listening now.
Yeah.
So take the time to look into who you love as an artist, and take the time to push them harder than you ever have before, out to the forefront. Share it with your friends if you think they might like it. If they don't like it, share it with them anyway, and just tell them to spread the word, and, you know, dive into their music and really focus on that. And then see where it goes from there. If you keep seeing the same lineups over and over again, say something about it. There's no harm in saying something about it. Obviously, these were probably planned ages in advance, but at the end of the day, you know, your voice still matters. And by you continuing to say, we need more women on these lineups, we need more LGBTQ people on these lineups, we need more people of color on these lineups, people are going to take notice of that. Promoters, talent buyers, agencies are going to take notice of that in a heartbeat, and they're going to make more of an effort in the future, regardless of however long it may be until that future arrives, to focus on bringing up those talents from marginalized communities. And that's all I really have to say.
Yes.
I would say that if someone is calling you out or like critiquing something you said, even if they're being an asshole about it, because sometimes people's pain manifests into anger, and like that's super valid, because depending on who they are, they might have been through some shit. So I would say, like, if you're being called out, listen and like pause and don't react. Take into account what they're trying to tell you. Maybe they're just trying to help you. Maybe they're just trying to like feel more understood, and don't immediately go into fight defense mode, because there's a lot that like gets lost in communication if you just want to fight someone immediately.
Right. Yeah.
I would ask to put pressure on the people in positions of power, like the A&Rs, the people who are curating the playlists, who are putting forth artists who are defining our reality of what we imagine dance music to be, because they have the power, or we have the power, to shape people's taste. I mean, the taste can be shaped in so many different ways. And if a lot of the promoters are thinking about ticket sales, and they're thinking about just looking at headliners and the artists being artists with commercial success, and those artists are the same artists we've been seeing for years because they're being favored at whatever sort of DSPs or Spotify or Apple Music or big brands, whatever it is. So I think I would definitely ask that the people at the top start also curating their employees, and the decision makers to also be reflective of diverse groups.
Definitely. 100%.
I would say for the industry, let's stop using tragedies to like and hashtag movements to start like calling your minority friends and industry friends acts and making you think about them when something crazy happens, and just be like that every day, you know, and that's how the stuff changes. Like you can't wait till there's a Stop Asian Hate movement and then call every Asian on your phone and try to, you know, that day, like be like that every day for everybody, you know, and then that's how we change the industry, man. It has to be a daily project, and you know.
I love that.
Hell yeah.
Personally, I think we should go back to when I was getting into dance music as a teenager, when I was like 13 and sneaking into parties and stuff. Everyone was handing me out candy that said Plur on it. And it was like a branded thing, like the Plur thing. But at the core, I think that is the most important thing. It's like, have peace, love one another. It doesn't matter who you are, just love one another. Unity, you can all come together. It doesn't matter who you are, and respect one another. It's really, really simple. And that's what this whole scene has been founded on, those principles. And I think it's really important to remember that, not just as a cheesy candy thing, you know, that it's at the core. It's so important to just respect one another and to love one another. Like, we're all in this. We're all just part of the human race here, you know? And I think it's really, really important, no matter who you are, no matter your religion or your race or your gender or whatever you believe or your sexuality, it's just respect one another and love one another and come together. And I think that's what drew me in, and that's what it should always be, honestly.
I want to add one more thing also. I feel like a lot of the promoters, they see bringing on underground or underrepresented talent as a risk.
Yeah.
And I think if we stop using that, or using that narrative, and we see it as an asset, to not just the festival or their business, but to humanity as a whole. It's like, it's not a risk to put on underground marginalized talent at these festivals or in playlists, whatever it is. So yeah.
Mix it up. I mean, if you're gonna have a lineup, you're gonna have someone on the art card, put some big artists on the art card after that person. It's just like everyone's on the main stage if it's all the people with 50 million followers. You know, the art card is cool, but you know, people pay to go see those big people. So put them everywhere. Switch it up.
I love side stage vibes.
Side stage for life.
Yeah.
like, who even checks who's on main stage, you know? Got a different vibe. Well, thank you all for all of your contributions today. I think that it's important for everyone to speak up, regardless of your background, because sometimes it just takes one person to know that one other person sees them, hears them, and speaks for them. Thank you, everybody. This was UnMute by Output.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, Danny.